Now then, last week we made a list of the best No Mercy matches ever, and it was really good. Mark Markuson gave it 18 stars. The surprising thing about No Mercy, however, is there are so many bangers, which is good, but what that meant was my honorable mentions category could have been a list in its own right. To that end, and because I like nice things, shout out to Edge and Christian, Rock and Jericho, Austin and Triple H, Angle and Cena, and many, many more. But because life is about balance and life is hard, I must acknowledge that No Mercy was also the stage for a series of stinkers. Thus, in the name of balance, I'm Dan, hailing from partsFUNknown, and here are the 10 worst No Mercy matches ever. Number 10, CM Punk vs Big Daddy V, 2007. A 2-minute match on a pay-per-view where your champion gets squashed is bad. A championship match that ends in a thoroughly dumb disqualification is bad. A match that solely exists as a punishment for something that happened off-screen is bad. This match is all of those things. And when I tell you about the backstage incident itself, you'll need to pause the video and pace around a bit. WWE CW champion CM Punk had paid a visit to OVW to work a very brief angle and help the younger talent. While there, he met WWE Hall of Famer Tony Atlas, who absolutely did not recognize him. Later on, Atlas said he'd felt Punk was disrespectful, which led to Punk clapping back in his own defense, just pretend to be shocked. And when that filtered back to the main roster, the decision was made to have Punk face the former Viscera at No Mercy. And then the match sees Big Daddy V do his impression of wrestling until his manager Matt Striker interferes in plain view of the ref to get him disqualified, the worst managerial decision since Frank de Boer. Am I right, lads? Little football joke. Oh, and all of this happened in Chicago, which is where Punk's from, obviously. Bloody hell. Number 9, Naomi vs Alexa Bliss, 2016. So this one's not necessarily their fault, which is why it's so low on the list. Alexa was supposed to challenge Becky Lynch for the SmackDown Women's Championship, but Becky had to be pulled from the show due to injury. In her place, they plonked Naomi. Two good workers who plod through a routine match, but when thrown together like this, there's not a lot they can do. There's a ton of rest holds, there's very little chemistry in the ring, it's all... I hate to use this word, but it's just quite boring. There's no story for the crowd to buy into, and Alexa was still relatively new to the main roster, so the crowd haven't fully got to know her, and Naomi's in the early stages of a gimmick change, so the match plays to near silence. In the end, Naomi does a weird roll-up that makes her victory look like a complete accident, and that's it. This match happened, clap, clap, clap. Number 8, Tori Wilson vs Stacy Keibler, 2001. Do you like boobs? Do you like bums? Do you like wrestling? Well, here's a key to a time machine, because in the noughties, you could get all of them at once, except for the wrestling. On a card that features not one, but 3 bona fide classics, Tori Wilson and Stacy Keibler were booked to have a scrap in their unmentionables. I think the entire show might have been themed around this one match, because the stage does look a little bit like a bridal lingerie factory, and they brought a softbox in to give the whole thing a gentle, softcore porn glow. When Stacy comes to the ring, JR just outright calls her stupid, and the match starts basically as an excuse for the men in the crowd to get really excited because 2 girls' skin is touching. Look, I'm as horny as they come, but my idea of a good time isn't watching 2 women awkwardly roll over Jack Doan and then engage in a series of badly executed pinning combinations. And nor is it Number 7, William Regal vs Naked Mideon, 2000. Wrestling matches are built around a simple story that you're telling between the bells. Can he lift the big man? Can she lock in her submission? Will they coexist? It's what draws us into the moment. The question here is, how long will it be before the man takes his clothes off? And the follow-up question is, why are we sitting here watching it by choice? Naked Mideon's entire character was that he was naked, and even the naughties crowd don't vibe. They respond with noisy indifference. They have the energy of people who stop briefly in Leicester Square to look curiously at the buskers before they go to the reason they're actually there, M&M World, bloody tourists. Where was I? Oh yeah, there's a weird hot tag energy to the moment Mideon takes his clothes off, which gives the match an unearned second wind. But between the unfunny character and the uninteresting wrestling, this match is a pimple on the nudist ass of the card. William Regal and his posh Mancunian accent make me very happy indeed. I thoroughly enjoyed his run as the Goodwill Ambassador to the WWE, but my goodwill for this character doesn't present the match with any reprieve. Number 6, Ivory vs the Fabulous Moolah, 1999. A little story. In 1998, WWE reintroduced their Women's Championship. They fleshed out the division by hiring women with in-ring pedigree, the likes of Jacqueline, Tori, and of course, Ivory. So, naturally, the champion was entered into a feud with the septuagenarian Fabulous Moolah. Now, in fairness, Moolah and Mae Young move around considerably better than I do, but the match still takes place in slow motion. The world's lightest forearm strikes give way to the limpest snapmares, and in one nail-biting moment, Moolah delivers some high-risk action from the bottom rope. But not content to leave it all to Moolah, Ivory does go for a suicide dive and manages to land squarely on her own head. Lovely. Honestly, Mae Young is a bit of a badass, taking 3 bumps off the apron in a way that has me wondering if there's a direct lineage between her and Darby Allin. But in the end, Moolah hits Ivory with a no-pressure roll-up and becomes the champion. Good grief. Number 5. MVP vs Marty Garner, 2006. There's a good chance you've forgotten this match exists. He might be a fave amongst the fans these days, but the start to life on the main roster was a rocky road for Montel Vontavious Porter. People weren't sure what to make of his backstage segments, where he was presented as an arrogant tool who talked a big game but never got his hands dirty. So he already faced an uphill struggle when he had his debut match at No Mercy in 2006, which became steeper when fans saw his athletic suit ring gear. And as if it couldn't get any worse, colour commentary at the time was provided by everybody's favourite bully, John Bradshaw Layfield, who brought his triple XL shovel to bury the debutant this time. The conceit was that MVP had handpicked his first opponent to showcase his talent, and that opponent turned out to be enhancement wrestler Marty Garner. Lovely heel tactics, but the crowd chants boring in the first 10 seconds, and then what MVP shows of his in-ring ability is tremendously dull. This is a SmackDown angle at best, and not a good one at all. Thankfully, over time, things started to click for the guy, but boy howdy, this was not the way to show us he mattered. Number 4, Enzo Amore vs Neville, 2017. There are several dings for this one, a match so bad it made the man Gravity remembered, Pac, leave the company. After building a ton of momentum in NXT that was brought gladly to the main roster, Enzo's heat had evaporated by this point, evidenced by his entrance chant-along, which the crowd takes part in quarter-hearted. It is stark how little people care. And then he cuts a full promo. Have you ever been to an amateur comedy show and each act gets 5 minutes, then someone starts bombing in the first 30 seconds, but you know and we know that they have to keep going, so we're all just sitting there and it's the longest 5 minutes of your life? It's that. And then that stretches to the entire match, which is just Neville massively overpowering Enzo in such a way that is not exciting nor interesting. But it's worse when you watch it back knowing the outcome. Every one of Enzo's comeback spots is stifled, the ref gets to an 8 count but just stops because Enzo picks up the belt, and then he does a dick kick while the back is turned and wins the belt, and it's just so insulting to everyone watching, and especially to the work Neville had put into the Cruiserweight division, which was a large chunk of the reason he ultimately left. Number 3, Batista vs the Great Khali, 2007. Against my better judgment, whenever they show a crane shot of the Punjabi prison, there's a little part of my brain that gets excited. It's the same part of my brain that perks up when you drive past a theme park and see the big exciting ride, forgetting that every time you go on it, you end up being a bit sick. I'm all for new and different match types as a special attraction to enhance the viewing experience, but it generally does help with the viewing experience if you can actually view the experience, which is barely possible here thanks to a combination of 2 cages and a bit of local theatre lighting effects. The pair give it a go gamely, but Khali can barely move, which means even when you watch the match on double speed to refresh your memory, it feels like it's happening in slow motion. Meanwhile, Cole is really trying to make fetch happen by saying every few minutes that this is steel reinforced bamboo, and I don't think that means anything. The end is quite silly fun. It all gets a bit American Ninja Warrior as Batista jumps from one cage to the other to escape before the big man. It looks cool and is mildly entertaining, but it is not good wrestling. Number 2, Triple H vs Kane, 2002. Strap in, I'm gonna whinge. The match here is actually kind of fine, but everything around it just makes me so very cross. First of all, it's the Katie Vick storyline, which is the Wagyu beef steak of yikes. And that means we have 2 of the biggest stars of the era facing each other to unify 2 of the biggest belts in the era, and instead of selling that, JR and the King are having a lively debate over what constitutes murder. And then, yeah, they're unifying the World Heavyweight title with the Intercontinental title, and that just pisses me off. We're right at the beginning of the Trip's reign of terror. After handing him the big gold belt, WWE made the decision, I assume to continue their great tradition of nonsense, to not carry through the lineage that JR tells us is a century long. So instead, they decide to make it mean something by hoovering up the fabled IC belt into it, which didn't work, and instead just compounded the reign of terror because all it meant was that there was literally 1 belt on Raw for people to fight over, and it was being held hostage by the game. It's a decision so stupid they reversed it just 6 months later, and thankfully, it took only 20 short years for the IC belt to start meaning something once more. All hail the Ring General. And number 1, Vince McMahon vs Stephanie McMahon, 2003. 20 years before engaging in a hostile takeover of the company from which he'd retired in alleged disgrace, steamrollering his own daughter in the process, Vince McMahon fought that same daughter in a no-holds-barred I Quit match. This is like the worst hits of Vince McMahon. It's navel-gazing family drama that had reached its peak 2 years prior, it's using Sable as a prop to snog a younger woman in front of his wife on TV, and in the end, he doesn't even do the job for his babyface daughter. It's not an athletic contest, obviously, so instead what you get is Vince mugging for the camera and Stephanie screaming for 9 minutes like she's auditioning for a part in The Exorcist. At least when Vince fought Shane, there was a relative balance in their skill level that allowed them to use smoke and mirrors to paper over the cracks. In the end, Linda throws the towel in for Steph, and then because you might as well go the distance, Vince does a post-match shove on his wife as well for good measure. I love sports entertainment as much as the next guy, but this is certainly not sports, nor is it entertaining. And that's our list. The comment section is now open for business. Let me know any you think we might have missed, and while you're there, utterly destroy that like button and have a sniff around the subscribe as well. And when you're ready, have a gander at some of our other lists, like this one.
No, there's no mercy! Look, what's happened is, they've let me do another list, and I wouldn't be honouring myself if I didn't shoehorn in a reference to 90s Eurodance. One of the longest surviving Attitude Era pay-per-views, No Mercy has a fondness among the wrestleriat. I'm working on it. Not least because it lends its name to one of the most iconic